Yeah, how long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching about 10 years, a little over 10 years probably.
And we met...
We met because I took your class,
That I know.
your animation class, and you were the first teacher that actually I resonated with, and I felt like you gave me permission to be crazy behind the mic. And you gave me permission to move outside of my comfort zone. You were fabulous.
Okay, so that really falls into what I think we should really talk about, because I find, because I've been teaching since the 80s. Mm-hmm. And while I was working full bore and still teaching and learning, it's so interesting because things have changed since then. When I did the Transformers, G.I. Joe, Super Friends, it was a certain approach to voiceover, a certain approach to animation. It was much more over-articulated than it is now. And then slowly but surely we began to become, even though they were characters, you could speak at a regular pace with a character. You didn't have to worry about over-articulating it. Because I watched some of those old shows and I go, what was I thinking? But then that was the thought process, the style at that time. But the one thing that I always taught, and which I know because I've seen you teach your class, is to think outside the box, is to not be comfortable. And it's very hard in a classroom exercise to not be comfortable. It's very, very hard to literally, it's like disrobing in front of a class. It's going crazy. And I always say that you're going to fail. You have to fail. You get on, if you think you can surf just by getting on the board and taking that wave, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to fall a lot. You're going to have to be embarrassed a lot. And there's almost no room. We try to get past the embarrassment factor. So for those of you that were smart enough to get this video, you'll understand that this is something you can expect to do, is to fail. What you don't want to do is to fail in front of people that can give you a job. You want to fail all the way up to that point until you're so secure that you suddenly say, well, that's competitive. I may not get the job, but it's competitive. And I think we both have felt that way over a period of time.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, what you're saying, when you're brave enough to make the mistakes, a lot of times that's where the magic happens. Mm-hmm. When you're not planning everything, when you're not thinking about how you're going to do the next line. I think there's a couple different ways to rehearse and practice. One is to have an intention and stay on track with that. The other way that you can rehearse and practice is to not have an intention, to just let it happen, especially if you're doing characters for animation particularly, or commercial copy. If you're just working on a character, sometimes you can just let it go and see what happens, because magic can happen in the accidents when you're not planning it. I think a lot of times we have this voice on the top of in our head, and as we're reading, it's going, oh, that sounded good. No, that didn't sound very good. And as we're reading, that voice is there. That comes through in your read. That comes through. We can hear those little speed bumps.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right.
When you're editing as you're reading your script, you're editing it as you go. That's one way to practice. And if you're working on a technique, on a pacing, that would be okay because you're thinking about what you're doing. But at some point, you're going to have to let that go. Trust yourself and just let it go.
And the only way you can do that is, it's kind of like you don't want to multitask. You don't want to say, okay, I'm going to perform, and then hear yourself performing. What you want to do is to be able to do the role, read the role, whether you're on camera or voiceover, and just go for that.
Go in the zone.
Go right into that zone, because often when you're angry, you don't plan ahead what you're going to say in that next line.
Exactly.
You don't plan that you're going to cry at this particular point. You don't say, gee, I wonder if these tears are really good. I wonder if I should cry more to make my point. No, you just do what apparently comes naturally. Now, under those circumstances, you say, well, look, gee, everybody can do this. Well, no, not everybody can do this. I've been in enough situations where I've worked professionally where I've seen actors get stymied by a line or stymied by a character, saying, gee, I don't know where to go with this. And I would say, well, you know, if they would ask me, and I have, I've had professional on-camera actors who were hired because they were names, and they would take their time reading a line and try to find the moment. Well, the camera's not on you. You're doing a voice. You're painting the picture. You've got to take that beat that you normally would take and make it a beatette, and maybe even make it less of a beat. It's got to be there, but you got to move it along. You haven't got time to judge your performance while you're performing.
No.
You've just got to move it along, and you need all those elements prior to that. So before we talked about demos, somebody making a demo, when am I going to get an agent? You know, it seems easy, but it's not easy. There are some people, and I've met them, that come out of the box and are sensational. I'm not going to name them because this is my video, not theirs. But they are wonderful. They're rare. It's and generally some of them have had some acting background. Most, even with acting background, can just play themselves. You've seen all the animated films that are coming out. These are all actors, other than obviously Robin Williams or Eddie Murphy, that play themselves. It's their voice. They're playing wonderful jobs of acting. Billy Crystal. They do their character. They do who they are.
But there's energy to their performance.
Absolutely.
There's acting going on, and they're having fun as well.
That's the
they're
bottom
having
line.
So much fun, and there's no boundary lines for them.
Yeah, when somebody says to me, oh, well, I'm told I have a great voice. Well, again, we discussed this earlier. That doesn't mean anything, as Laurie had pointed out in her portion, that, you know, you may have a great piano, but if you don't know how to play it, what value is it? And I feel the same way. Everyone's got a voice. There are people that have voices over here. That's a great voice. Somebody's got a voice over here. That's a great voice. Somebody's got a back voice over here. Well, that's a great voice. But what do you do with it? Where's the value in it if you don't know how to change it, how to make it work for you, and if you don't have a foundation, if you don't have the acting chops, then you better work at it. Then you better get into a theater group. You'd better get into an improv group. I mean, we're reiterating what we've said before in our single shots. But I can't say this enough. I think this is so important. The fact that you need the acting chops. You need to know what's behind it. One of the examples we had given was when I teach. Sometimes there is a situation where the characters are fighting. And I will work sometimes with a professional actor or even with a student, and the fight says, ah, oh, ah. And they'll go, ah, oh, ah.
Yeah, because it's written in the script as, it's like UGH, or ah,
or yow, or IE, AIEEE.
Kai.
Yeah.
You know, KIEE. Now,
you're not going to say that. That's you don't give a literal translation.
That's the writer's way of saying there's a physical movement here with a sound.
Yeah, you're screaming, you're falling, you're getting hit, you're hitting.
That's right.
You can't take that literally.
No,
it has to be yours.
Or ha ha ha.
Yes. Yeah.
Ha ha ha, and then you get all these actors on the audition tape who are going ha 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 ha.
Right.
You know, instead of it's a laugh. Ha ha. This is important.
Yeah.
This is important. The sound.
I'm glad you reminded me that this is important.
Yeah.
Okay.
The ha 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 means laugh.
That's the thing is, it's so funny how people think in terms of those of 5 segments. It's ha 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 ha. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I don't think anybody does that unless, of course, you're meant to do that. Unless you're meant to go and it's that kind of animated show, which is rare. If it's just a character laughing, it's going to be or let them cut it off, let them fade it out. But you're not going to go, ha 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 ha, death.
Right.
And I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, or
yeah, you're dead right, exactly.
You know, or the cry is, that's it. The cry stops, or constantly telling students, give me a little more of the laugh or the cry. Don't be stingy with that choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I think, what was it, a Rugrats segment of Chucky telling, of Chaz telling his son Chucky that the mother is not coming home. It was a Mother's Day special. And I had to explain to him how his mommy wasn't coming home, but she was in the heavens watching us. And in doing it, I had to get caught up in it because I knew he was losing it. I had to lose it. I couldn't fake it. There's no faking something like that. Laughing, important, pointed out to me, something that I constantly say. When a character is laughing, why is the character laughing? The writer may have just put that in, and because it becomes a de rigueur to go, well, now the evil guy said, and so I shall take over the world, whatever. You have to know why he's laughing. Or what any evil character, or whatever the character is, find a reason to laugh so that it becomes real for you, and it becomes real for the listener as well. Otherwise, it's going to sound like some strange sound just coming out of your mouth, and there's no reason for that laugh. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the reason is not always apparent, which is probably the most difficult thing, is that the reason why a character is laughing or saying something is not always apparent. In most auditions that I get, where there's, if it's a character audition or animation, they don't give you the scene. They don't tell you why the person is saying what they're saying.
And you also don't get the other dialogue.
You don't get the other person's lines.
So you get a response to a dialogue. So I have had students say to me, well, what happened before this? Which is a good question, and I can do that in class, but you won't get that opportunity if, for those of you that are professional actors and you're getting the opportunity to do voiceover, you will have to make up what happened before that. So basically it's an action or an attitude. It can be anything. It may have nothing to do with the story, but it's your reaction.
Exactly.
Is it a good reaction? Are you happy? Are you angry? Then you give obviously the information, which is what they want to hear, but you don't have to know before that. Other than the fact that that person said something to you that was deleterious or made you angry or upset or put you in a difficult position. You don't have to know what the position was, who they are, or just the fact that they did that to you to be able to respond. So,
and to make, you have to use your imagination and make something up, I think.
Use your imagination.
You really do, because otherwise you end up sounding like you're just reading words.
Yeah.
And lots of people can read words. So that's not going to get you the job.
Especially an actor. Actors read well, for the most part. They are clear. And that doesn't make a difference if there's nothing behind it. An important factor, objective. What is the character's objective? What is it that the character is there for? What is it that they want to do? They can't just say a line in limbo. We don't do anything in limbo. We all have a reason for being there, whatever the situation is. So you should, if you don't know what the character's objective is, then you'd better make up one. Then you better have a clear objective, because otherwise it just becomes a line, and we don't understand the jeopardy that you're in. Are you in jeopardy? Is the character in jeopardy? Often you'll get a script or copy and you don't know who you're talking to. Are you talking to the person next to you? Are you talking to a crowd of people? Is this something that you want them to hear? Is this something subliminal in the back of your mind? Make that decision.
You have to make a choice. Absolutely.
And professional actors do that on camera. You've got to, if you're lucky and you get the whole script, you're lucky. You're lucky. You don't. You get a sheet of paper in terms of voiceover. You get a sheet and it gives you a character analysis, which is more information than you ever needed.
Yes.
About,
so many times the description is longer than the.
Oh, absolutely. You'll see.
Many times.
Has always been afraid of the ice and freezes up. And then there's nothing in the dialogue that shows they're afraid of the ice. I didn't need that. Their mother was a serpentine from the village of Ungawa, and you didn't need any of this.
You don't need any of it.
All you need is the basic. Are you in jeopardy? Are you not in jeopardy? Are you happy? Are you unhappy? What is your objective? What is it you want? What do you want to get? And we need to hear that. If it just becomes a line, it becomes a line in limbo, and we go, gee, they read very well, but I have no idea what it was that character wanted.
Yeah. And speaking of reading, everyone should be reading out loud. I do want to say that.
And you talked about voice level. You talked to me earlier about you have your class, when you have your class, you have them start at a high voice. That's funny.
I have people practice different pitches, because a lot of times you don't know all the voices that are inside of you. Many times I will start practicing, if we're talking about animation, I will start practicing in one voice, and all of a sudden some other lady comes in. And I say, where did she come from? Who is that? And she says, I'm here and I'd like to take over, And I said, fine, come on in, come to the party. Who wants to host the party? So again, we're talking about different ways that you can practice, where sometimes your intention is to stay on the technique. And then other times it's to find out who's inside of you. Because there's lots of voices inside of you that you may kind of know. And sometimes voices will come out that you had no idea.
It's like taking a chance. You want to take the chance. You want to say, okay, I've never bungee jumped. Now vocally, I'm going to bungee jump. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this chance. And you don't obviously do that without, in front of a lot of people. You do that by yourself, and then you play it back and you listen and you say, okay, maybe I can go a little further than that. Maybe that's I'm on my way with that particular character. And as I say often, the idea is if you listen, there are certain characters in movies that you listen to and say, how will I get to that voice? How will I get back here with that sound? How will I get to the sound over here? How will I get a squeeze voice? You don't automatically get a squeeze voice unless you say, I'm going to try this. try it. Oh, there we go. It's that kind of thing. Good. That's the beginning.
That's the beginning. So if you find the voice,
right,
you say, and then sometimes I'll say, okay, so here's my voice. I'm going to start with the New York accent. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with this a little bit. I'm going to see what happens when I go deeper. So what happens when she goes deeper? She goes all the way down here. And then what happens if I play with a little more and I decide I'm going to take her down here? Right. So all of a sudden she's down here. Now what if I want even to go deeper? I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to keep it here.
And she becomes Italian.
She becomes Italian, or she becomes almost like a machine.
Or she could be a troll. She could be an evil witch.
She could be a dock worker.
Right.
In a video game. Hey.
Move it over, buddy.
Give me the key or you don't get in.
And you can know what that character looks like. She's got a big sweatshirt.
Right.
She has stripes across. She's got her hat pulled down with a little hair sticking in the hair.
So you start with the bones. You start with one voice, like here, and then you take it down, and then you take it all the way up, and you go as high as you can with that, and you play with the pitch. You play with the pitch. And then you have to know also, I think, how your character sounds when they're angry, when they're laughing, when they're crying, they have to have developed personalities. That's very important because you can't expect for them to develop their personality the minute you get behind the mic. Does not happen.
Oh, you're stuck. It's like getting up there without a script.
It is. It's awful. And so many of my students, when they're rehearsing, whether it's commercial or animation in class, I say, get out there, go somewhere and read this out loud. You don't want the first time that you read a script out loud to be when you get behind the mic.
Yeah.
You have to read out loud, which brings us back to reading out loud.
Yes.
Because it's very important to be a good reader out loud, which is very different than just...
There's copy everywhere. There's advertisements in magazines. Read the advertisements. It's written very similar to the kind of copy you get in commercials, obviously. If you're reading a comic book, pick up a comic book.
It doesn't matter what you're reading.
Read the different characters in the comic book. How can you change those different character voices? I mean, it all works out for you as long as you put the effort in. It's not going to happen when you get in front of a mic. And just because you have a voice, and you may have been gifted with a little tiny, cute, sweet little girly voice, does not mean as a woman that you are able to do children's voices, which is mandatory, obviously, if you're getting into the business. For women, children's voices is where most of the money is, as it appears to be in terms of animation. Little girls' voices, and little boys, generally done by women. It's not going to happen unless you listen to those voices and say, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if I got the pipes for that. Because you won't have the pipes for everything, but you may have the pipes for that. But just because you have the pipes doesn't mean you can act it. That's what's important. Acting. That's the bottom line. Making sense of the script. And you can add everything. I always talk about Mr. Potato Head. So all these different things. Layering till you finally have a character. And then you walk in, and when you get a script, you go, oh, that's my character. Or that's my character. Or that's my character. And you don't have to fish around and say, okay, maybe he sounds like maybe. Also, he may sound like that. Can I do?
Oh, no.
Out.
They're going to say, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much. And
Yes,
you will
please.
never hear from them again. But one of the things that I do when I'm practicing a script and rehearsing a script, particularly if it's video games or animation, and commercial too, I rehearse it physically. I actually pick the script up, I take it away from the music stand, and I walk with it, and I rehearse it physically. If I have to play a woman squeezing through a bus door and get stuck in the bus door, I will go over to a door in my house, I will close it to about that much, and I'll try to squeeze through as I say the line, because I want to know how that feels. I don't hit myself, though. I don't hit myself in the stomach.
See, I do.
Yeah.
Anytime you want, I'll come over and hit you in the stomach. If you get one of those calls. I've had to fall off cliffs, and I've jumped off cliffs just to see what that sounded like. And I once attempted to kill my wife because I played a character like that. She wasn't happy.
No,
but I get what you're saying. You're absolutely right. And
I do. I mean, if the character is pacing, maybe in fact, there's many times when a character is angry or giving a scolding to their squadron or something like that, you know. And it feels to me like that character would be pacing. And it's very unnatural when you get behind the mic and your character wants to pace and you're standing there like that, which, you know, by the way, very few roles are going to be this, or with your hands crossed in front of you or crossed in front of your chest, or your hands folded behind your back, which is how a lot of students approach the mic. Mm-hmm. You know, they're like this. I believe in kind of talking with your hands. Mm-hmm. I believe that this helps you read. The physical movements come out into your voice. This, pick me, sounds different than, pick me.
Yes.
You can hear the hand coming up.
You're
in
painting the picture.
voice.
Remember I said you paint the picture?
Exactly.
You can't paint the picture standing like this. You
cannot.
Can't paint the picture standing on one leg. And you can't worry about it. You know what we are? We are show-offs. We love doing what we do. Everybody that I work with, we're all show-offs. We love it. We all can't wait to get up there to show what we can do. And that's how you have to be. It can't be trepidatious. You really have to enjoy the work that you're doing. You have to enjoy getting up there. You fail, you fail. It can be laughable. And it's laughable among our peers, and it's laughable among your classmates, and it'll be laughable among your friends and family, whatever it is. But you keep trying. You keep going at it until you refine what it is you've got. Whether each one of these characters, listen to the talk shows, really important, because you'll hear characters
like
on
Jerry
talk shows.
Springer and
Jerry Springer, wonderful characters, and any of the radio shows that I listen. I love music as much as the next person, but boy, I love the talk shows because I hear people call up from all over the world, and I say, "Wow, what a great sound! Wow, what an interesting phrasing that person has," and that's the kind of phrasing that I'm going to use for a character, and I'll lock it in.
And you try it on. It's like trying on different outfits. Mm-hmm. You know, you try it on. And sometimes I try on a voice and it's like it just doesn't resonate with me. And then other times I'll try on a voice and I'll say, wow, that's really fun. And you know you're on to something, I think, when you start laughing at yourself and when you start feeling some joy from playing that character, whatever it is. And you know you're on to something when you feel like bubbles.
It works. It will work. If you work, it'll work for you. And as I said before, if it eventually doesn't happen for you, hey, you will still become a different person as a result of this.
Yes.
You become a mom or dad and you have to read to your kids, you're going to be the best reader that there is because you will have... Somebody once said that to me. Said she didn't quite ever reach the zenith she wanted to reach. And she said, but boy, I became the best reader. I did wonderful witches and warlocks and I played fairy princesses and things. She said, reading to my kids, and I was just, it was so special for me because I learned that in your class. And that's what's important. You grow. This is about growing. This is about growing outside your comfort zone, growing outside in a place you never thought you would. I mean, it's a wonderful shot. If you make it as a VO person, bravo. If you don't, you've learned something really super. Here's the best. Had an audition. It was an English accent. I did the English accent. I knew my competition was going to be a bunch of wonderful British actors. And I got it. And I went in and I did it. And then a couple of months later, I was at an event, and one of the young ladies came over and we were talking, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad I've got this new series." She named the series, and I said, "Well, that's the thing I did. I think I'm on that series." And she said, "Oh, really?" And I said, "Yeah." And I suddenly knew I wasn't. So I called my agent and I said, "Well, I read for this thing. I got it." She said, "Oh, yes, right." And I said, and I'm no longer doing it. And she said, "That's right. You haven't been called." I said, "No." So I said, "Are they continuing or what?" And she said, "Well, let me find out." She called. She said, "They dropped the English accent and they went with an American. They want an American accent." And I said, "Right, I did an American for them. I did the English. They said, 'We don't want the English. We want the American,' even though I got it for the English accent. And I did the American. They said, 'Well, they changed their mind. They went back to English.' And I said, 'They didn't call me.' 'No, they went with somebody else.'" So what they did was they originally had me read it with an English accent, with a British accent. I went in, they said, "No, we want American." I did American. I really wasn't prepared for it, but I had to make the switch. The lines were designed for a British dialect. It was designed, and it was odd.
Written, yes.
It sounded strange in my mouth with an American accent, which is mine, which is Mid-Atlantic. And then I did it, and then they eventually recast with an Englishman. Go no. So you take your chances, professional or not professional. That's how it goes. But be prepared for it. And don't go in doing something that you don't know. Don't show what you don't know. You don't get up and say, "Yes, I play piano," and sit there and go, "Dun, dun, 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 dun." That's not playing piano. Okay? You have to, if you have the opportunity and you think it's within your area, that's something you've worked on, go for it.
And I say, to add to that, if you are practicing a character for an audition that does have an accent, whether it's Southern or British, be prepared that they're going to ask you to take away that accent and just do a straight American
Or modify
accent.
it.
Or modify it. It's very dangerous, I think, when you practice in the accent. It can throw you for a loop when they say take out the accent. Trust me, I know this. It can throw you for a loop when they say, "We love everything about your read, but can you take away the accent?"
And cut off your head.
And cut off your head and stand on one foot and hop while you're chewing gum. And you say yes, but and you have to be able to do it like that very quickly. So be careful when you're practicing that your characters can try on different accents. That you don't that whatever character that you're doing needs to be able to do different accents and not just one.
But do rehearse. Do rehearse, work on those accents. Again, an accent a month is fine. An accent every 2 months is fine. One accent, you get that zeroed in, it's yours.
Yes.
It becomes yours. You don't have to look for it anymore.
Right, and reading out loud every day. Every day for 5 minutes a day.
Enough.
It is crucial, and it only takes 5 minutes a day for your brain to go, "Oh, you want me to do this?" Because how many of us walk around reading out loud? We don't. We read, but we don't read out loud. And it's a little bit different. And that's crucial. I would say the top 3 things in commercial copy, or any copy, you have to be able to read out loud. That's not something you want to have to worry about when you're auditioning, is whether you're getting the words or not. This should just be second nature to you. So reading out loud is extremely important.
Exactly.
You can't stumble on words or you're not going to get the job.
So you have it all here. Go do your job. We did our job. And I hope you learned something from this process. And if you have any questions, don't call me.
Good luck to you guys.